article in the Wall Street Journal claims that the shift to the right in this election reveals that Americans view themselves as belonging to a particular economic class more than their race and gender. And Bill Maher said it's not the only thing Democrats got wrong. Take a look.
Someone must tell the usual suspects on the far left that the saying is, when you're in a hole, stop digging. You just lost a crazy contest to an actual crazy person. What a shocker that the people who see everything through the lens of race and sex see their election loss as a result of racism and sexism. Yes, if only we weren't so irredeemably unenlightened, we would have elected a black president by now. Oh, what, we did? Asked if racism is built into our society. White progressives agreed with that at higher levels than black and Hispanic people. They don't want your pity. And black people can't afford to indulge rich white people's need to endlessly flagellate themselves. They just want prices to go down and good jobs and the police when you call them.
Well, if you...
Well, who have we got here? Today we're on The View, who are responding to what Bill Maher had to say about them. And it's funny, because I just finished recording a video about that Bill Maher clip. So we'll probably upload them at the same time, and you can see what I had to say about that. Now, of course, The View doesn't like what Bill Maher has to say, and I think Whoopi Goldberg and her fellow hens on The View are going to have some choice words for Bill. Let's see what they have to say.
If he's right, then why didn't people vote for the former prosecutor who actually had policy plans to help the working class?
Oh dear, I already have to interrupt. Please excuse me. Yeah, Kamala Harris had a well thought out plan to help the working class. She had a well thought out plan for foreign policy. She had a well thought out plan for everything, but she somehow just couldn't express or communicate that plan during all those softball interviews the media gave her during her joyful and nearly flawless 100-day campaign.
I mean, you know, again, I got my popcorn. I don't know why people did what they did. I see all these reasons, and so, okay, time will tell. But what do y'all think?
I just, you know, I know that as a country, it's very difficult for people to believe that racism and misogyny, they're just alive and well. I think that we don't want to think that about ourselves, our neighbors, our friends, but it's my lived experience tells me that it does still exist, even if your lived experience doesn't tell you that it exists. And, you know, the facts support that. I think we have a graph. If you look at there's a clear racial divide in who voted for Trump as opposed to who voted for Kamala Harris. It's very clear. It's not only clear by race, but it's also clear by education. And so the notion somehow that that is not true, this is by education. Those who attended college voted for her at a higher degree than those.
That's an interesting graph. That makes me think. So yeah, it says there that those who have a bachelor's degree or an advanced degree tended to vote for Kamala Harris, although the gap is not that big. I see 53% compared to 45%. Yeah, 59% compared to, I can't see that. First of all, the gap's not that big, actually. And secondly, all that tells me is that college-educated people these days are dumb. And they are being more, they get more of that propaganda and indoctrination and brainwashing you know, they consume much more of it, get us exposed to much more of it during college. And as we know, the colleges in the United States are completely captured by leftist ideologues, completely. So that makes perfect sense to me.
Those that didn't.
But I think
I've
you're
said
missing
that.
his point.
Let me just finish. And so I've said that before, and there was so much backlash because I think it's an uncomfortable, inconvenient truth about this country.
But his whole point is they didn't vote for him because of racism and misogyny. They voted for him because they felt like, I think the biggest common denominator in this election is people want a good life and ability to provide for their family.
Well, then why did black people-
whether we
why did
agree or
black
not
people vote
with
for
Donald
him?
Trump's plans,
Black people
they
are
thought that he was
one of the
reflective.
poorest demographics in this country, but they voted for Kamala Harris.
But there was a split, and more of them voted for Donald Trump than had historically. I think that there's such a desire. If you really think the vast majority of this country voted because of racism and misogyny,
I didn't
you're
say the
missing
vast-
it. Most of my
I didn't say
family,
the vast
a lot of my
majority,
family doesn't
Alyssa,
have college
but
degrees.
the stats are the stats.
But that's not, it doesn't say,
They're-
I'm
they're-
white, I voted for Donald Trump because of racism. That's not
you
what
can't-
stat. What
you
stat
can't
are you talking
You
about?
can't dissect the
Yes, you
two.
can. There's a lot
Hold
more
on,
to this.
hold
Let
on.
me just-
Calm down. Everybody just take a breath. Take a breath.
Well,
Take a beat.
well, let me jump in here because I think,
Yes.
Sonny, what you say is valid, and I think absolutely that is part of the problem. But when we hang our hat on that's the only problem, or
No
the
one's
main,
saying it's the only.
I'm not saying you are, but I'm saying the backlash is that when people hang their hat on that being the only reason, any criticism of Vice President Harris must be because she's a woman or she's black. I voted for, thank you, I voted for Hillary Clinton, not because she was a woman, she was the most qualified. I voted for Vice President Kamala Harris because more of my values fell in line with what she stood for.
First of all, was Hillary Clinton more qualified? More qualified in what sense? Yeah, she had much more experience in the swamp. She was a complete and utter swamp monster. She was a creation of the swamp and became a creator of the swamp, or a contributor to the swamp. Does that make you more qualified? That makes you more qualified to be part of the system. I would argue that Donald Trump was more qualified in 2016 because he wasn't a swamp creature. And then Kamala Harris, also a swamp creature, not at all not qualified in any way, apart from being a DEI hire for vice president. So no, I reject these assertions out of hand.
So all of that can be true. There is something here to the socioeconomic class, though, that is crossing racial divide in academic and education, too. Americans with a college degree 30 years ago were roughly 20% of the population and held the same percentage of household wealth as those without a degree. Yeah. 30 years later, this is important, Americans with a college degree account for 38% of the population and 73% of the household wealth. The haves and the have-nots have gone so far apart that they are rising up right now, and they cross every line of our democracy.
Okay, can I?
Okay.
So look,
Go ahead.
I think most people are not saying that it was all about sexism and it was all
one's
about
saying that.
racism. Right. Most people are not saying that. I would say to Bill Maher, who I like, whose show I've been on several times, that maybe, just maybe, when you live life as a woman and as a woman of color, you feel it and you know it a little bit more than a white man does in America. And so I'm not saying, he says that folks see everything through the lens of racism and sexism. Not everything. But if you're not seeing racism and sexism in America, then you need to clean your lenses.
But if I can
Because,
point-
so I
Maybe all those women and black people and Latino people who voted for Trump see something else. Maybe they see, maybe I'm going out on a limb here. Maybe they realize that they don't want, maybe they realize that the country was actually in a better position when the patriarchy, dare I say it, when the white men were firmly the firm majority of those governing the country. I mean, let's face it, the United States is a European country in the sense that it was founded, it was settled originally by Europeans, specific Europeans, Brits for the most part, and then created by, the country itself, the United States of America. So the colonies were settled by Brits, the United States was created by Brits. It was a European project, a European invention. It was created by them and for them and their progeny, their descendants. So that doesn't mean there's not place for other people, for non-Brits, or for the descendants of the slaves who were brought over, etc. But when they were in charge, maybe things are running better. Maybe. Is it possible to say that without getting canceled these days? It seems like maybe a lot of people, minorities included, women included, are starting to realize that.
This is something that I also find interesting, that when Democrats and liberals talk about race or sexism, it's immediately labeled as identity politics, which has a negative connotation. It's a term that Republicans have coined, and it's been very effective. But when Donald Trump goes to Miami and talks to Cubans, that's not identity politics. When Donald Trump goes to Dearborn, Michigan, and promises Arabs something, that's not identity politics. When he goes to Jews and promises them the opposite, that's not identity politics.
So I think it's important that we remember 2/3 of this country does not have a 4-year degree. And in fact, 38% who do live 9 years longer than those who don't. Something is happening in this country. It's a lot of my family who don't have 4-year degrees. They may...
All right. That, what Ana Navarro was saying there about identity politics is actually kind of interesting. Yes, she's absolutely right. Politicians, when they're campaigning, they pander to different special interest groups, whether it's corporate, whether it's big donors, whoever they are, or whether it's racial groups, ethnic groups, or different levels, different class groups, working class, donor class, etc. Yeah, they do that all the time. So yes, that is a sort of identity politics in the sense that they're pandering to groups. Now, again, going out on a limb, I would say the problem with America these days, and not just America, in Western Europe too, including in the country where I live, in Western Europe, and have lived for over 30 years, there are now too many of these identities that need to be pandered to because of mass migration, mainly because of mass migration, demographic change. Whether you agree with demographic change or not, I don't. I think European countries, including the Anglosphere countries, should remain such, like the vast majority, because that's the kind of countries they are. And if you have mass migration from non-European countries, you're going to change the texture and culture of those countries, and they will no longer be European. But the fact is, if you have too many of these different identity groups, everything just becomes fractured and denatured, and you have social disintegration and breakdown. That's what we are seeing in the United States and in Western Europe. So let me know what you think about that. This woman here, Alyssa, who's on the screen now, I sometimes wonder if she actually voted for Trump. She seems to be the only one on this panel of 6 yentas, the only one who pushes back against some of the just ridiculous stuff that comes out of the mouths of the other members of The View. But let me know what you think in the comments below. And as always, please like and subscribe. It really helps me grow the channel and continue making content for you. And I was just thinking, maybe I should do something. I mean, I'm up to over 4,000 subscribers, for which I thank you all very much. But maybe I should do something at 10,000 subscribers. If you have any ideas about what I should do, some kind of, what do they call it, a reveal of some sort, let me know, and I'll think about it, and we'll see what we can do at 10,000. So thanks again, and I will see you in the next video.